Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Create a World. We've got all the or most of the collaborators here today, which is very exciting for me. So, if you're new to joining us on these broadcasts, Create a World broadcasts are about sharing different aspects of what we're present to, what we're engaged in, noticing, or when we have guests, what they're presencing in the world regarding creating worlds, inner worlds, outer worlds, communities, um, whatever form it takes. And we welcome your questions, your comments, your engagement, because that's part of creating a world. And for me, I'm feeling that more and more strongly that us sharing contributes to you all, but you all sharing to us uh, strengthens the field and lets us know the ripples in the pond because there's a lot of them out there in terms of creating worlds, generating the realms that we want to anchor here and live in and live from. There's a lot going on, despite a lot of other uh, conversations and how the news tends to be more fear-based than hero-based. So that's who we are for Create a World. And today we're going to talk about starting the new year because I had started I do like to do my goals for the year. I enjoy that. I enjoy reviewing my year before and I enjoy setting up for the next year. But I noticed that the more I engaged with it, I was getting more tired, more frenetic, tense, and so I stopped myself to see what was going on. And I realized that, excuse me, well, I was being frenetic. And I was choosing goals based on the system I was born into, the separation-based reality, the world that says what I should do. If I'm going to be successful, if I'm going to make it, what I should do. And, similar energies. So I just started looking at, for me, what what's the background? Because I do think for me that term that people apply to goals and objectives and accomplishments called SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. I kind of like that. It keeps me grounded. Um, but only from a certain point of view. So I started looking at what do I want to do? I mean, draw from. What's going to have me make it through the year? Because I wouldn't make it in that kind of frenetic energy. So I started looking and making a list. And then when I was sharing it with all the folks here, they said, "Oh, yeah, I do it like this. Oh, yeah, this is what I draw from. Oh, yeah." And it just became such a lovely, fun conversation. So I'm also taking on some of what they said and adding it to mine and, whatever. So a lot of times, in my experience, people that talk about setting goals for a job or for the new year, and this is not New Year's resolutions at all. I stopped that a long time ago. But people, in my experience, it's like a set of rules that you're supposed to live by, and that there's only one way to do it. So I'm not telling you any rules. These are going to be rules for me because I need the guidelines. I need what I'm steering off of. That helps me. And and I can check in. So one of them is everything has to be from being, from my being, not from even the mundane things have to be from an orientation of being. And then a phrase that a bunch of us started using a while back, being doing. So anything that I would consider mundane doing can still be from a place of being. So I call that being doing. And it really shifted um, how I orient to doing my um, goals for the year. Is it life enhancing? Uh, things like that. So that's my starting point, and I want to open it up to everybody because you all were sharing a whole lot of things that I found really delightful. And I'll pop in with some more of mine too. And if you all share from, while you're watching this, if you all share some of what guides you and steers you. And I also want to offer some tools during this if that comes up. So that's where I want to start. Take it away, whoever.
I'll jump in because this is really fun. So, in the field of Tantra Mat, one of the things that we do is if we hear a word and it triggers us, we can repurpose it. So, my first word to repurpose is goals. So Deb and I have very, very different designs. Well, my design is, you know, my design is, I just don't think of, well, every time I see, people setting their goals for the year, I'm just like, it's just not part of my design. So, and I used to kind of berate myself for it. And of course, now I know, excuse me, it's not part of my design. And so I operate differently at the beginning of the year. And for me, it usually starts in the summer. Pardon me. It starts the summer before a word. So instead of goals, words start to pop into my into my everyday life, into my being, and if a word does that and then it starts to show up more and more, like more than once, I know that that's a word for the next year. So one of the words I had forgotten that had popped in last summer was resilience. So so resilience is just now in my field for the year. And so it's there. I have it up in different areas. I was showing everybody I have a daily planner. It's there. My business planner, the words are in there. So resilience is one. The other one that I really like is tenacity. And tenacity is part of my design. It's like that never give up, keep swimming. So, but it's supposed to be up for this year. The other one that showed up was in September when several of us went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, and the word was immersive curiosity. So, so here's this is my daily planner, and then here are the words front and center, and so I loved the word immersive curiosity. Um, because I know that that's part of my design. So if something really piques my imagination, just another word for this year, I go with it and go with it and go with it until it's that craving, that curiosity is fulfilled. So also in the field of Tantra, we say that we're used by something. Well, that's, you could look at it, that statement one way. I look at it as, these words use me throughout the year to give me messages on where to go next. And so for me, these words are part of my compass. They're like north, south, east, west, and north, east, northwest, etc. Um, and they're my guideposts for the year, which is just really, really cool. And then the last thing I'll say is there's a word that I had for last year that's just not part of life this year, and that was oh my gosh, to look now. Senior moment. It was the word whimsy, except that whimsy and imagination are similar to me. Whimsy is within imagination, so it's not like I'm leaving the word behind. Um, so that's enough for now. I mean, I could talk the whole hour on this.
So so when you say you go off of, or how, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, if I'm asking myself the question, is it from my being or from a place of beingness? Is it creative? Um, Whatever the other questions are, is it relational? You know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Oh yeah.
using that to steer off of and give myself
Yeah.
guidelines or choice points because I'll tend to go into the shoulds pretty fast, pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Should be like this or that, or do this or that. So that's kind of how you're using your words for the year, right?
Yes, they're beingness for sure. Um,
Oh, yeah.
and so when they show up, sometimes they show up in literature. You know, the word imagination in the last week showed up like 3 or 4 times, and so I pay attention to that. So that's kind of a guideline. So it's how I like to roll. It's kind of spontaneous, right? It can be spontaneous. But when I see any of these words or pop up like that, I pay attention. Well, how is it used? What context is this word being used in? And to see if that's for me in my beingness to pay attention to. Maybe I'm getting a message, you know,
Yeah.
for how to steer my boat.
Okay.
Does
Cool.
that help?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I might turn it into, is this imaginative? Is this fostering resilience?
Mm-hmm.
Just because somehow for me, the questions to myself kind of wake me up and lead to, okay, imaginative, is this imaginative? Um, but I'm really interested in what you're saying about having the however many words it is to, uh, I guess I'm going to say, guide you in your shaping of your year, your life, things like that. So
Yes,
thank you.
sure.
Here next. Um, I am always very drawn to the question, what if? Actually, when I was early in my teaching career, I did a professional development around a lesson planning approach called format, and it was based on sort of 4 different ways people approach learning, and there are people who want to know the what of learning, the why of learning, but the fourth question was what if, and I definitely fell into that what if category. Um, and so for me, and very similar to what you were saying, Deb, about, sort of finding myself sometimes trapped in the thinking of the reality that we were born into. And when I catch myself thinking, oh, well, that's not, I could never do that. That's not possible, blah, 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 blah. That's a signal to me that I'm coming from that sort of that separation based way of thinking, right, wrong, good, bad, high, low. And so then I really find it helpful to go into what if, and um, I will often say to people when I'm working with them and trying to help them get in a more expansive place, um, if you could wave a magic wand and have anything that you wanted, what would it be? Um, for me, it would be, among many things, oceans full of whales again. And again, I think when we can let ourselves sort of get trapped in that, logical, practical um, thinking, it's like, well, why would that matter? And well, to me, it would matter because it would set my heart ablaze, and that matters, right? Um, I've I've read several versions of, what the world really needs is people who are in love with their life and the world. And that can show up. How many people do we have on the planet now? 7 billion different ways. Um, so for me, it's a question of expanding my thinking, and letting myself really consider, if I had a magic wand, even if I don't end up doing a certain thing, to me, it's more about stepping into the place of possibility. Um, there was a TV show on for a while called Inside the Actor's Studio, and the host would always ask people, what's your least favorite word and what's your favorite word? And whenever I would watch that in my brain, I would always say, well, my least favorite word is impossible. Um, in fact, the best way to get me to do something is to tell me it is impossible. Um, and what's your favorite word? So my favorite word is possible, possibility. Because we really do have infinite possibilities. And yet we can get very accustomed to functioning from a place of very limited possibilities. Um, I'll say to myself, if I had all the money in the world, like especially when I'm trying to sort of make a decision that's maybe around work. If I had all the money in the world, what would I do? How would I fill my day? Um, and that question has led me to making some pretty significant shifts in my life. Um, that that I that direct me more towards that place of being. And I really I love the word being, and it's I think one of the riches that I've gained from um, being part of the Tantra Mat community, the field of Tantra Mat, all these years. Um, and it's funny, I was having a conversation with the director of a show that I'm doing right now. And he was talking about a really great theater experience that he'd had. And I asked him what it was that made it so great. And we got into this conversation about be here now. So that's actually, that's a really important um, uh, skill for an actor, is to be able to be here now. Because when you're here now and your scene partner is here now, then you can create together. You can you can take a scene and you can add colors and layers, and if they add a little bit more of this, then you can respond with a little bit more of that. But if you're in your head, stuck in your own, what's my next line? Oh, I gotta cross to the sofa and sit on this, if you're in that sort of mental mind that we sometimes talk about, it can shut down that creativity because you're stuck in your mind and you're no longer there connected with your scene partner. And so the ability to create is not as is not as big. So I also, Deb, you were talking about, as you started to write these goals and they were feeling not like a match. I also find that when that happens to me, it's a question of sort of bringing myself back to this moment right now, be here now. And so what is it that I want for my life right now? What would feed me? What would be life enhancing for me right now? Because sometimes the answers that bubble up might seem a little bit counterintuitive. Oh, I want to grow my business, or I want to, and yet when I tune in to myself, I'm being told to go within. Well, gee, that seems kind of contradictory, except that, of course, within is where anything I'm going to give to the world is going to come from, right? And so for me, it's, it's being open to possibilities. It's being willing to be in the present moment and tune in to what is my body asking for? What is my soul asking for? Um, and being willing to uh, hold the gravitas of those answers. Because, in this reality of separation that we were born into, that those, what does your body want? What does your soul want? Those things, are often poo-pooed, and yet they're incredibly important to our beingness, right? And so, and then being willing to sit with, the last thing I'll say is being willing to sit with what comes up that's uncomfortable. Um, because you might say, as Liz is sitting with all her words, imagination, and you might have a feeling come up like, well, gee, I'm not imaginative, or I don't feel like I'm very imaginative, or well, I could never do what Liz does, um, and those messages are uncomfortable, but if you can sit with them and investigate them a little bit, you can find um, a message in them that will serve you. Okay, well, maybe I'm not, you know, I mean, I personally myself, the drawing that Liz does blows me away, right? I mean, I'm like stick figure, no, and the idea that I would get out a paintbrush and paint, like never. But I can be creative with words. So, it's the willingness to be a little bit, perhaps uncomfortable, to be a little bit confronted, and then to sit with that and find the wisdom from it, um, through that place of being and through that place of what is life enhancing. And then you'll get guidance about next steps.
It's also more, I guess I'd say, life enhancing. What you just, because I think that frequently, what you just said with regards to Liz and her art, I think that frequently. But it can be a put down. And that's not okay. I'm not imaginative the way Liz is, or expressive the same way, is what, because it can be. And that was another thing when because I've listened to a bunch of people that do, how to be successful stuff, how to set your goals, whatever. And some of them I saw an ad for one on YouTube the other day, And he started with failure. And I thought, okay, that's it. You're gone. I'm not listening to you anymore. Why do I want it? It just, there was nothing uplifting about him starting with how many people fail at this and this and this and this. It's like, give me a break. What the hell is failure anyway? Or success? Which opened me up into another one. What are my measures for success? But with regards to like Liz, no, I'm not imaginative the way Liz is, but I'm very imaginative and expressive. So there's a freedom to explore. I don't know how to even finish that sentence. There's a freedom to explore and a
Yeah,
freedom.
and I think to be be comforted in the knowing that we're we are all unique and essential designs. And we eat right. I mean, and I again, I'm scientist, biologist. I love to use those kind of metaphors. But if you think about your body, the liver cell does the liver cell's job.
Yeah,
Your cornea cell does your cornea's, right? The white blood cells do their job. The red blood cells do their job. They don't worry about, oh God, I'm a red blood cell. I only do this, and the white blood cell does that. No, so when we can embrace, fully embrace our unique and essential design, then we will find the ways that we can contribute to the whole joyfully.
yeah, yeah. I'm going to read a couple of the comments that have come in. Um, Mundane doing from a place of being. I was writing something similar last night as a way to be in this week. And then the same person said, I can't do year-long goals. A week is enough to work with. I can really relate to that because I may say in 2025, I want to accomplish X. Um, but first off, I'm not in December 2025 now. I'm in first week of January, like was being said earlier. And yeah, I really relate to that. Then someone else said reflections instead of goals. Where can I be with, where can I be with as reflections for the year? Don't use names. Okay, yeah, got it. Yeah, don't use names was a reminder. Yes, and then another person said reflections, reflective language senses as the expansive space I want to move further with into. And then another one said, yes, Janice, what would be life enhancing right now? Feels nourishing, more a place I can move from rather than goals for me. That's an important point. The word goals works for me right now, but it does have a lot of baggage attached. It has a lot of baggage. Like the person who he's this guru in the world of success and all that stuff. Why would he start with failure? Why would he do that to people? Ugh, gross. And another one that gets me that I wrote down is talking about challenges and failures as opportunities. Most of the time, I find that to be like, okay, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not walking into that trap again and getting eaten alive and beaten up because of some stupid thing you just said. No. So, but I'm exploring that now. I'm exploring challenges as opportunities. But I'm starting to look at it through the lens of what Liz said, of the words. And what if challenges is a word for me or opportunities? I don't know. I don't know. I haven't landed on that. Anyway, thank you all for replying in the chat. That's really wonderful. I look forward to more. Okay. there.
And what I do is sounds like a combination of everybody else's. I have done the huge goals, where I'm going to lose fantastic amounts of weight and exercise these hours and hours, and it usually doesn't last past January. And that just, makes you get discouraged. So a friend of mine said, she said she wanted to exercise more. So all she said to herself was, small steps matter. And she said she does 250 steps an hour. That's it. Now, if somebody's really going, I'm gonna run a marathon or something like that, they'd scoff at 250 steps an hour, right? But I thought, no, that's the way to start. Just a little bit. Like one of the things is I'm thinking, okay, change my diet a little bit and see how that goes, and do the same with walking. So one is the little small steps in the stuff that I want to do. The other one, I I learned about words from Liz. So I have picked 6 words. Some of them were with me for a couple months, and some just popped up in meditation. So they're compassion, coherence, unity, consciousness, reverence, vitality, joy, and delight. And the challenge with joy and delight was to come to everything with joy and delight. So if I'm exercising or eating differently or talking with people I don't have a whole lot of interest in, come to it with joy and delight. So that seems to be the one that is pervasive. But the other thing I'm doing is because I know there's many aspects of words that live within and are not consciously thought. I'm doing templates 3, 4, and 6 on each word. So what I'm doing is each day I'm going to do those 3 on each word plus on the ethers of the word. Because if we're talking about wanting imagination or being in the moment or whatever, part of it may be missing from this reality. So I always think about I'm pulling the ethers of compassion in, or the ethers of vitality, or the ethers of joy and delight, so they can be anchored here. So anchoring them. And I figure, so if I do what I'm planning right now, and I hope this isn't one of those huge, big steps that I don't do, and what I'm doing is each day in early January, I'm doing the 3, 4, and 6. And then I'm just going to keep up doing observings on those words every month. So they come back to my consciousness. Do I pay attention? Am I still coming to everything with joy and delight? How do I bring in vitality? How do I bring in reverence? And right now they're taking, I guess, more of my focus, because it's like setting a framework for myself of things I want to build. And I hope that they also contribute to the goals of weight loss and better health and those and publishing. And I don't know. All I know is it's step by step, small step by small step. And if I can keep myself on the small step path, I think I will have accomplished a lot by the end of the year. So that's my contribution to the way to come with this thing of making a new year better.
Wow. That's really rich. That's really rich.
No, thank you.
Because I don't, because there's a lot of things. You listed several of them that I'm also working with. Is the 250 steps an hour is way more manageable than you should get 10,000 steps a day, which may or may not be true as a measure of if you don't do that, you won't get healthy. You know what I mean? But the joy and delight, that I don't know why that really got me. And the way I'm seeing the screen, I've got Victoria on one side and you on the other. And Victoria, you do your Mystic Magic menus and food prep, which has been helping me a lot. I do not, up till now, it's changing. I do feel it changing. But historically, I have not enjoyed food prep at all. And even though I haven't been able to be on two of um, your gatherings for doing a meal, it's helping me. But if I approach, I don't know, there's just something about what you said, Electra, that kicked me into, oh, I could use that to bring my relationship with food prep to the next greater whole. What do you know? So, thank you. That's really cool.
Before I share mine, I have a question, Electra, that if you could say a little bit more for you, what struck me besides the joy and delight is how are you going to be with your writing practice and your observing yourself in life in relationship to bringing the ether of those words into your living experience. I'm just more curious about that, what that is for you.
First of all, what I try and do is sit with the word and the energy and the resonance of the word. To me, that's the resonance of the ether. Okay. So part of it is like I'm doing the quantum bioengineering spiritual values practice every morning, listening. And when they speak it in Spanish, I just sit there for the whole time and call in that. And today was rectitude, which is moral integrity, but it was in Spanish. So I got to imagine. And that's probably the first step that I do so that I am familiar with the resonance of the word. And I really believe that the more we pay attention in our everyday life to a word or an emotion, it is called in. Its ether is called into. And so that's why if we listen to what everybody's saying, and that's why Deb got upset about failure. She says, why would you talk about it? Why would you call it in? Unless you wrote a template 3 about it and you change that reaction. But most of the time, that's the first thing I do. I think the most active one will be joy and delight because, it's tricky when it's the one that I can call in if I'm just doing da, 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 da. If I can do the stuff of life, like cleaning the bathroom yesterday with joy and delight, it becomes part of my cellular structure and my way of walking in the world. And the rest of them, I'm going to play with all year long. But that's why I decided to do the templates 3, 4, and 6. 6 being the one of the being with it in the world. So that's kind of, ask me in a month or two, and I'll tell you more about how I'm doing it. Is that enough?
It's delightful. It's what I love about the way you brought it forward is, for me, it's the vibration, the frequency of the words. You use the word resonant. We're in kind of like two fields overlapping one another is what it feels like. And I've been pondering that same notion of taking the virtues and actually doing more specifically, template 4, craving what being in that state of each virtue is for me, and seeing what rises from the practice of it. So that's for me one of the ways I come into the conversation with you guys is what serves not only me, but is on behalf of others, what practices bring that forward in me. And then it's that idea of, okay, the mundane, what we call the mundane, is what's possible to give us new access to ourselves. And so I've always had an interesting relationship to the new year. I might have to do a craving what new year is for me is on this one and see what comes up. I have tracked myself in different times of what is the new year for me, based on what I'm in relationship to. So there were many years from years ago that I tracked according to an annual retreat I participated in. That was the new year for me in what I would pay attention to the following year. So September was that month for me. And then other times it might have been my birth date year that I decided I would track more from a personal growth and what I wanted to explore. And so it varied. It varied. And I have done the actual New Year some years, but it hasn't been a tradition for me. And so in thinking about it this year, one of the ways that I'm paying attention to growth is a combination of those ways in which I've moved through the year in different timelines. I know that I'm trying to find the words for it. But one of the things I know about my design is I have a propensity to stay operating behind the scenes. Like I'm always at work about something behind the scenes. And to venture forward is a growth point for me. And so I love adventures. I love adventures. But the word venture is one that rose up from what you guys have been saying. It kind of revealed itself. And I said, oh, what does it mean to venture forward into from the ether being of my nature into the physical world in this year? And for me, this year is a really significant year to grow in this way. Because it's not only on behalf of me. I think, however, I discovered what it means to venture into the physical world may just serve others too. And I've been more in the physical world this past year than I have since 2020. And I find that really fascinating that I'm engaging in the physical public. I'm going to say in the physical public domain, not like I've been in nature but it's been more inward connected relationship to the physical being world. And this is more in the human realm that I find myself a little surprised, and that it's part of my venture moving into 2025. There you go.
I love how unique we all are. And somebody said, conversation is bringing me to the thoughts of how to find our own individual access points for who we be and want to be being and becoming. And that was the thing, you guys talk about my imagination, and then I immediately go to the gifts that you all have and wish, oh, I could try it from that vantage point. But then it always comes back to, well, okay, go back to your own unique design and see, because through our own unique design, that's where, to me, the passion, it's the ether, it's that, one of my words, tenacity, right? Where is that I can't not for you in this new year? Where are you steering today, on a day-to-day basis, because it'll change. And that's the thing too, is resiliency and adaptability or malleability, flexibility. Those words are important for each of us, and we be with those ethers, because I, like Electra, I do know that each word has its own frequency. So how do we be with that? And I just have to presence this because I'm blown away and I don't have the word for it, but I've been drawn to this book. Interestingly, the title of the book is Esme Cahill Fails Spectacularly. How funny is that, right? So I was drawn to it because, for whatever reason, I'm obsessed with Asheville, North Carolina, and holding Asheville. I've been holding Asheville, uh, in their rebuild and etc. And I love the Biltmore Estate, all of that. And so that's what drew me to this title. But in the book, and I have to go back because I'm fascinated by it. This woman has a gift, although she's told it's a disability, basically, where she can experience emotions as textures and colors and tastes. She literally can taste anger. And she tastes anger in someone like mustard. I mean, that just fascinates me. And it has a name. So one, I love the juxtaposition of failing spectacularly. I just love that because, if you're going to fail, do it well.
Can you say the whole,
Yes.
so Esme
It's
something, and
Esme Cahill, Cahill, fails spectacularly. I have to look and see who the author is. Marie Bostwick, Bostwick. I have it on Audible. That's how I read. But it's about a woman who is drawn to go back to Asheville, to her roots, because her grandmother, who's now passed, I guess, wants her to go back. Her grandmother was an artist, so of course I'm interested in art, right? Whose art and her grandmother's art, I guess, never got displayed in the way she wanted it to. In the 1930s, around the wartime, or just when the war had broken out, when World War II had broken out. So this book is about discovery, etc. But I'm fascinated by being drawn to literature and then have it be a completely, what I call, a manual piece where you really learn from it. So failing spectacularly. So that's an example of being used by these words, right? And the word imagination came in, and there was another word that now I've heard a great deal in the last few days, which is not coming to me. But anyway, so failure is another one. to repurpose. And for me, failure is no longer, it doesn't have the sting that it did. I think I use the word mistake instead of failure now, and know that those mistakes are learning opportunities. So just wanted to bring that in. Okay, I think I'm complete for now.
I would love to hear about some of the tools you wanted to share.
In my mind, it's been talked about a lot. But for like tapping your creativity, because any one of us could pick, even in the way that observing a certain word is kind of a container or a sort of a a riverbed, kind of a guidance system for life, has different expressions. It's already been done differently just in this group. And creativity and beingness. But when I said that, I was thinking specifically of the templates, particularly. And I mean, there's a gabillion ways to do any one of the things that have been named. And that's really important in my mind, is to find what is expressive of each person's unique and essential aspect. And even the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, or time sensitive, timely. There's so many different ways to do that. I can no longer do it from a place of anything other than beingness. So even if I did something that most people consider concrete, like a certain financial goal, and I don't know, let's make something up. I'm going to save X amount of money in a month. I could say, okay, this is what, based on today, I'm going to do it like this, and use different tools, my calendar, my bank account. Um, there's some cool apps out there and stuff. And I may just say, look, this is not serving me today. I'm not going to save money. I'm going to go blow some, I'm going to go buy something. And then, but I have to distinguish between, am I just blowing money, like emotional spending? Yes or no? Is that a bad thing necessarily today? Maybe yes, maybe no. But then I don't get to berate myself later. If I say yes, it's life enhancing today, I don't get to berate myself later. But I was mostly thinking the templates that Electra mentioned as a specific way to engage with not just repurposing the word like joy and joy and delight, or for me, failure would be, I'm planning on doing that. It's not just that for me. It's recognizing that using the templates really does rewire our minds into a creation-based existence. So, which comes down to life as a spiral, not a linear phenomenon. That if I pick financial goals, let's say, everything's connected to everything else, so that's going to impact my 250 steps a day in ways that I have no idea how they're connected, but I don't need to know. or my joy and delight with food prep, you know? And there's a magic and mystery there that I think is rising for me. And um, the other kind of basic principles of moving myself into a creation-based life, my direct connection to creation, because keep using the financial example, that's going to be so different for me based on my unique and essential nature than it would could be for any one of the rest of you. And it's not necessarily based in the circumstances of my life or yours. It's the nature of moving with any given phenomenon. And those are the sort of things that I just really, I don't know. To me, those are the most powerful tools. Everything else there's a ton of tools out there, uh, or make up your own to track something. But
So Deb,
yeah,
I would love for you to read the last comment in the feed based on what you just said about the nature of who you are. It just fits so perfectly with what you were just saying.
okay. So I see two conversation that I don't think these two were read. Conversation is bringing me to the thoughts of how to find our own individual access points for who we be and want to be being and becoming. Yes. And the next one is, excuse me, conversation is bringing me to the thoughts of how to find. Oh no, that was a repeat. Okay. The same thing was being said again. Or somehow showed up twice. Yeah, I think that's really important. Really, really important. And felt really we've just got like 2.5 minutes, so I'll be quick. I think that's really central. And the templates is something that helps foster that, anchors people in that very, very well. It's part of the design, and there's so much more to that. Anything else for anybody else? Because we've got like 2 minutes before we close.
Yeah, I just wanted to present something that's sort of been underlying the whole conversation, which is this idea of self-sourcing
Mm,
and trusting ourself, trusting our inner wisdom, trusting that the answers are actually inside us and not out there somewhere. Everything that we've talked about pulls us back to this idea of really of moving with our own wisdom.
It's beautifully said. Yes.
yeah,
Trusting our unique design. We're so unique. Trusting that.
yeah.
I love that.
And for me, something Electra said, I heard you say, and I hope this makes a difference for others. And I was really struck by that. If you're repurposing a word, you're accessing your world around that word, and you're anchoring it here. So there's no way it can't be a contribution. You've just changed the whole universe by doing that. And I was really, really struck by that. And I think there's a lot in this conversation that's more of that.
I think we're all changing the world
Mm-hmm.
and that we're doing it our own unique way. And that's what makes it powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we're at time. Probably got about 30 seconds. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it and really look forward to next time and all the creating worlds.